And we have only just begun. Welcome to Seal Beach Center for Spiritual Living. My name is Marjorie Ray. I am a practitioner. Today I'm the host. I have the host hat on today. I also happen to be a practitioner and chair of the Leadership Council. And we have, man, a wonderful service in store for us today. You already heard the musicians, and they're going to lead us now. No, you know what? God, I want to just acknowledge that today we are sharing this service with our brothers and sisters from Namaste. And why don't we all just turn around to someone near you and say, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here. All right. Okay. We're all very glad to be here today, for sure. All right. And you've heard some of the musicians. We're going to hear some more of these talented people. Lead us in our congregational song.
Yes, we will.
Let's see. We're going to be singing, I think, Something Wonderful, yes? Yes. All right. Harold Payne tune, yes.
Volume. Feel free to stand, clap your hands, do the shimmy, dance. If you want to know who can shimmy and dance, look at Rev Bobby.
Wonderful. Something wonderful is happening to me right here, right now.
Sing it, Dennis.
And something wonderful, and something wonderful is happening to me right here, right now. I feel that, and I can feel it in my body. Ooh, and I can feel it in my soul, and I can feel it in my heart, and it won't let go. And something wonderful, and something wonderful is happening to me right here, right now. And something wonderful, and something wonderful is happening to me right here, right now. Oh, and I can feel it in my body, I can feel it in my soul, and I can feel it in my heart, and it won't let go. And something wonderful, and something wonderful is happening to me right here, right now. And something wonderful, and something wonderful is happening to me right here, right now. All this on the inside, we wonderful, everybody, and something wonderful is happening to us right, right now. Let's do that again with us. And something wonderful last one. Something wonderful.
Oh, wow, do we have a good service for you. We've only just begun, and it is already something wonderful. It's so great to see everyone here. Thank you again. We are so blessed. Oh, my goodness, so blessed. So now we're going to say our vision statement. And remember, this is the one we built for the exploration that we're in right now, that exploration of the unifying with Namaste and Seal Beach. So join me, let's say it together. Through mindful and respectful exploration, we are creating a healthier foundation that supports and engages a whole beloved community, equipped to launch new strategies for a thriving spiritual center. Yay! Today, you've already heard our musicians, such talented people. Dennis Bryan on the piano. Lena Hayek on the guitar. And our multiple talented Des is drums and saxophone. Way to go. We've got great music coming today. And our featured speaker is none other than Reverend John De Palma. Reverend John has guided us for the last year and a half, and this is his last in-person visit. So this is the last time we will get to hear him in person here. But he's going to continue for another 6 months as we move through the whatever we do next. So he's going to be available and joining us on Zoom for several different things. And then for our practitioners, we have Pam and from Seal Beach and Jesse Keeler from Namaste are going to be doing that. And I think that's it. So I'm going to announcements. I get to introduce another person. You probably have met her a couple of times. Susan Colick is she's the president of their board. I'm the chair of the council. So I'm going to start. No. What? Yes.
Yes.
All right. Yes, I am. Read your own notes. Okay. Today after service, I got to get a little closer because they don't pick me up otherwise. So. And then you come over. We haven't practiced this. And we have a different situation here, so we're learning it. Our after service, we have a celebration in honor. Reverend John is not leaving us, but he won't be here in person anymore. So we're having a party, a celebration with pizza and cake. And yes, one of those cakes is chocolate, John. I know that's your favorite. And then after that, we will have a report from our leadership exploration team. ELT, exploration leadership team. I get confused with all the initials. In any case, that's happening right after service. We've got plenty of food. Invite all of you to join us. Now you can have the microphone.
So phase 1 of the exploration process is quickly coming to an end, which means that recommendations are coming in from all the different teams. And next Sunday, April 23rd, there's going to be a vote. But in the meantime, if you have questions, you have concerns, you just want to meet and talk to people about this whole process, you have an opportunity coming this Wednesday at 6 p.m. on Zoom. At 6:30. Should read my notes. 6:30, April 19th on Zoom. The link is in the Seal Beach newsletter and also the Namaste newsletter. We've done this for the past 3 Wednesdays, and there's been some really good conversation. So I invite you to come and ask your questions and join in.
And Seal Beach will be meeting that same 23rd. We'll be doing the same thing here in our sanctuary that they are doing in theirs. And now one of our beloved congregants, Steve Blue, who was a very talented gentleman musically and supported this church in many different ways, made his transition. And his memorial service is this coming Saturday, the 22nd at 1 o'clock. Everyone is welcome. So Steve Blue, his celebration of life is at 1 o'clock, the 22nd of April, this Saturday. Oh, all right.
I think it's worth repeating on April 23rd what we're doing.
Yes, I think so. We did it twice. That's all right. April 23rd, we have the vote. Here at Seal Beach, we just sent out an email letting our members know that in order to vote, you must be in person. However, if you can get on Zoom and we can see you on Zoom, we'll consider that in person and you will be able to vote from Zoom. If you're not a member, you won't be able to vote. We'll have a list out and people sign as they come in. And I'll let Susan talk about hers.
And the membership at Namaste should have already received an email reminding you of the vote and including the Zoom link for it. We will be doing it on the 23rd after service in the sanctuary. If you had requested an absentee ballot, it will be coming to you through email, and it needs to be returned by Thursday the 25th. No, Thursday the 20th, which is the Thursday before the vote. Yeah, and that's me too.
Yeah.
You have yet another opportunity to talk about how you're feeling and your concerns regarding unification. Eileen C. Davis is graciously hosting a meeting once a month on the last Monday. It's at 2 p.m. here at Seal Beach. It's a nice place to come and just talk about what's going on. What is this unification thing all about? So please come join her.
Want me to take that one?
Oh, me again. Holy moly. We got lots going on, people. Mark your calendar, April 29th. That is the next Circle event. It will be here at Seal Beach in person. Valerie Day will host it, and the guest is Pris Munson. The workshop is called Ascension, a Personal Journey. It will be an opportunity to explore through meditation and a sound bath. Register on Eventbrite. The link is in both of the newsletters. And I have to tell you, if you've never experienced a sound bath, being surrounded by sound, I highly recommend it. It is really powerful.
Yes. And so that concludes our announcements. And I now invite you to just take a nice deep breath and allow yourself to just center as we move into our practitioners and the talk. Just settle back down in quiet contemplation and ready to receive.
Good morning. This is Jessie Keeler from Namaste.
And this is Pam Watanabe, one of your beloved practitioners from Seal Beach. So the past month we've been talking about vulnerability. I know it's one of everybody's favorite topics, right? Being vulnerable, we all like to feel vulnerable. So I was going to ask you, Pam, what does vulnerability mean to you?
Vulnerability is being willing to put part of yourself out there that may not be as pretty as other parts of you. It's about letting people know who you really are. You know, that whole thing of, how are you? Oh, I'm okay. Are you? And being vulnerable is being willing to say, great, if you're great, or being willing to say, I'm struggling, but it'll be all right. Or whatever you need, or I'm struggling and I need some help.
So, Pam, has there ever been an opportunity for you to be vulnerable in a safe environment?
Yes, we have had the very, for me, unique opportunity the last 18 months. When Reverend John first came, he introduced something called the Care Group. And what that means, it's basically a group that tries to get stuff done. It's a working group, but in this case, And yet, when we pull in the fact that we are a spiritual community, and we start every meeting with each person going around saying something good. Sometimes if there's a larger group, it's one word. Other times it's just a sentence. And then we go into, does anyone need a prayer for, as he says, hardness of head or heaviness of heart? And very often,
Have you had some heaviness of heart?
I have. Very often, well, the last several months, someone in my family has had a really, really difficult time, unrelated to anything that she really has done, but she's right in the smack in the middle of it. And I had been telling them and crying a little bit, and I thought I was getting better. I thought I was going to be, it's okay. But I just kind of one day when he said that, I thought, I could use some prayer. And I started to say, well, about, and the floodgates opened. I did ugly crying, that like snot, and I could not stop. I was shaking. I was so, and this is on Zoom. I mean, he's in Seattle, Window and Janice and Marjorie, and I think Floran was there. And I just cried and cried and cried, thinking, and I said, when I finally was able to get my breath, I said, I didn't know that was there. I didn't know. Well, then I was okay. Then I was able to express that and got to the place of feeling heard and held. And they said a beautiful prayer for me and our loved one. And we went on and had a very productive meeting because I could be present. I could be right there because I had let that out that was simmering behind the.
What was different about for you to be vulnerable in that moment? Are you always like that? Do you always ugly cry? No,
I don't always ugly cry. No, I grew up in one of those, my mom was a strong farmer, and so we're strong. You don't have time for tears. You got to just get in there and work. And I worked in the corporate world for many years. And any of you that are in the corporate world know that, especially when I was running a physician office with 8 surgeons, you're not vulnerable in front of 8 surgeons. They will eat you alive. So it was very different for me. And from that, I felt a sense of power. I felt a sense of knowing who I was and that I was okay. It was okay for me to hurt. It was okay for me to express the fear that I was feeling and that they would love me anyway.
I think that's one of the amazing things about vulnerability that I've learned in the last month is it calls something deeper inside.
Exactly.
That's something powerful. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Thank you for being vulnerable. So if you want to go a little bit deeper right now, and we'll get this party started, just go and settle a little deeper. Breathe in. Know that right here, right now, that divine, creative spirit that we know is God, that is this thing we call life, is ever present and ever active in all that we do. It is this life, it is this beautiful moment where we all come together in extraordinary respect for one another, for ourselves. And in this moment, we bless all of the congregation, everyone in this room, everyone that is watching this, streaming live. We bless our children, we bless our musicians, and we bless our beloved Reverend John, knowing that he's brought so many gifts to us as a congregation. And we are here in large part because of all that he's contributed to keep us together. Thank you, God. Thank you, life. Knowing that this moment is complete and whole, and this service is stellar and done. And so it is.
And so it is.
Thank you.
dark clouds in every stormy sky. I know that all you do is change your mind. You can best believe the Spirit acts in kind. There's a first time a kid falls off that bike. You know what they say, you gotta get up, try. The next time will be better than before. You can best believe that God ain't keeping score. But God's got this, I know. God's got this, so let go. And if it all boils down to just one thing, and it's the one thing that you know that Spirit brings, and then we all join hands tonight. We all join hands across the great divide.
God's got this, I know.
The divide,
God's got
the
this,
divide.
so let go.
There's a new seed for every garden grown, but there's a deep need to make attention known. But when you drop that thought into the soil, you can best believe it's sprouting up with joy. There's a rough wind that can take you down, but there's enough good to keep you safe and sound. And if you trust that sky to stay alive, you can best believe that you can fly.
God's got this,
I know God's got this, so let go. And if it all boils down to just one thing, and it's the one thing that you know that Spirit brings, and then we all join hands in life. We all join hands across the great divide.
God's got this, I know.
Divide
God's got
and
this, so let
divide.
go.
And if it all boils down to just one thing, and it's the one thing that you know that Spirit brings, and then we all join hands in light. We all join hands across the great divide.
God's got this, I know. God's got this, so let go. God's got this, I know. God's got this, so let go. God's got this, so let go.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Awesome.
Dennis wrote that.
Music is just so beautiful, making us connect to Spirit, isn't it? Thank you, guys. That was great. So my last Sunday, we were in the prayer room before service, and Reverend Bobby was leading the prayer, and she said something about Reverend John and the talk that he's planned versus the talk that he's going to give. Versus the talk that you're going to hear. And I'm not sure exactly what that's going to look like right now. You know, it's surprisingly so emotional for me, but not surprising. And the things that sneak up on you and surprise you, besides the hugs and the well wishes, as I'm sitting there and we brought up the mission statement of the exploration team, I almost lost it. Because this was created and driven by the exploration teams, and it's such a powerful vision that has set us on a course that is, you know, it's uncharted, but behind it is the trust in Spirit, which has really been remarkable through this whole process. So, you know, it's my last Sunday, and there are really no words that can describe how I feel about this connection, except to say it's been a momentous moment. Momentous moment in my life. And I'm honored by the opportunity to have that with you all. So that brings up another momentous moment in my life as minister. And that is 30 years ago, Dr. Kennedy Schultz, who was president of Religious Science International at the time, officiated the wedding vows between me and Reverend Kath. She is, thank you. And it's connected to ministry because of him. He was a father figure to Reverend Kath and a good friend of mine. And he guided us through some very difficult times. So that was 30 years ago in Atlanta, Georgia. The plan is, she's today in Prescott, Arizona, doing her work as interim minister. And so we're going to have a rendezvous in baggage claim tomorrow in Seattle. Now, I know that's not very romantic. We had our 30th celebration in going to Egypt in the last November. So that was that event. So I wanted to look at, from that time 30 years ago to landing here in Seal Beach, because there's so many stories of ministry in between that are, at least to me, very entertaining and momentous moments. But I decided to pick one, and I think one of the most significant ones was my ordination ceremony. And so in religious science at that time, in the culture, there was a meme going on that said, if you were accused of being a religious scientist, would there be enough evidence to convict you? And so it's a really weird question, and I've got a really weird sense of humor, but we decided to actually rent a space that was in the Historical Society of Orlando, and it was in the building that was the Orlando Orange County Courthouse. And so we rented that space, and it had a big jury box that was tilted toward the judge's bench, and an elevated judge's bench, and a defendant's table and a prosecutor's table. And so we had Reverend Dr. Bob Dean. If you don't know him, he was in the education department at Home Office. So he was officiating it, or the judge for the trial. And I have to reveal, this was my criminal past. And so we had practitioners and ministers from the area that were in the jury box. And we went through a whole trial process. Now, I'm sitting at the defendant's table, and we only had 8 people in the jury box because there was also a hurricane that was coming up the coast. And we didn't know whether we were going to have it or not. So one of the questions they asked, the prosecutor asked, were you ever in doubt that you would hold this event tonight? And as a good, arrogant religious scientist, I said no. And so that was part of one of the questions that led to my conviction. But I'm sitting at the defendant's table, and I see in the corner there's a piece of plexiglass on the table. And I went over to look at it, and carved into there was the name Ted Bundy. If you don't know who that was, he was a serial killer. So I was actually convicted in the same courtroom as Ted Bundy. So there was a lot of strangeness about that night of a hurricane coming and, Ted Bundy and being convicted of being a religious scientist. And the question is, what is a religious scientist anyway? Does anyone still use that term? Do you identify as a religious scientist? And maybe you do, maybe you don't, but it's really changed over the years. And the question of, is there enough evidence to convict you, is a really strange question, because it comes, at least in my mind, from a place of extreme defensiveness. We had to defend ourselves in the culture that we had a right to be there as religious scientists. Is that making sense? And I don't know if anybody's ever felt anything like that. But it became something that over the years I constantly revisited. Is would I be convicted today of being a religious scientist? But we had a good time. We had heavy hors d'oeuvres and classical music, and it was just a great time. At the end of the service, though, we had something that was very special to me. We had a circle of ministers and practitioners, and these were both from RSI and United. And for me, it was a very healing circle, because at that time, United and RSI did not really get along very well. This was pre-merger, pre-unification. And so there was some contention within this community, and had been for years. And I've got a bunch of stories about that, but I'm not going to get into that. So, you know, it just raises for me this issue of, you know, was there this question of spiritual arrogance in the culture of New Thought? And I think there was. I think there was spiritual arrogance, spiritual indifference, and spiritual ignorance. That was, it's not part of the philosophy, but in terms of the structure of the organization, it seemed very apparent to me. And I'm not just speaking of this because I think it's so. I've experienced it in so many different interactions with the leadership in both organizations. And the question is, well, how do you know? Well, an example is in all the conferences that I went to at Asilomar or other conferences, one of the first questions that you would be asked as a minister is, how big is your community? How many people do you have? How many practitioners do you have? Do you own your own building? And depending on who was asking it and whatever measure that they had of your ability to fit in or be recognized, the answer was always, what's in your consciousness? What's in your consciousness that you don't measure up? And, you know, I had to ask, am I complicit in any of that at all? And I remember in classes sometimes people would come in and the students would even challenge each other. Somebody would come in with a cold or a broken arm and somebody would blurt out, what were you thinking? What was in your consciousness? And it was really heartbreaking. And in counseling sessions, people would come in just burdened with this metaphysical guilt about not measuring up. Not measuring up. And it was, this isn't what we see in the philosophy necessarily, so where did it all come from? And I think there are some systemic issues that really brought it out. And I don't know exactly what it is, but I think it's not just New Thought. I think it's more widespread as a general dysfunction in our culture. Is, you know, you look at primitive Christianity, when we look at what Christ actually did and taught, he was always working with the disenfranchised, with the poor, the weak, you know, the people on the edges of society. And in fact, Paul formed small groups of people like that, where they could share their experience with the message of redemption or salvation or whatever it was, but realizing that within them was something that was legitimate. And these small groups were safe places. And Christianity caught on fire because of those small groups, up until about the 3rd century, where it became institutionalized. And a lot of those teachings of Christ were lost, or at least minimized. And so you look at Christianity today, at least popular Christianity, and you've got to scratch your head and say, this is not what Christ was about. So I think there's a larger dysfunction here about, and maybe it's just the Western culture, but I don't think so. Because I can look at, you know, not only was I measuring myself against some imaginary definition of what religious science was, but challenging my competency as a minister, as a husband, as a father, as a parent, as a lover, all of those things, was I a good provider? And it was always bringing into the question of, was I enough? Was I enough? And I think that's the biggest cultural issue facing us today, is this sense of not enoughness. We all live in this environment of having an expectation of what life should be. And so we try and control and manage everything and be anything but vulnerable. I've seen it in corporations where, the CEO cannot show any sign of weakness or doubt, because that would impact the community or the culture. And yet everybody in the culture was feeling the same thing of not being good enough. And the thing that was never talked about was the idea that Pam was so eloquently talking about, is this hardness of head and this heaviness of heart that has to be concealed rather than revealed. And so I think that's something that we really need to take a harder look at. So I want to stop here and tell a story. And you may have heard it before. It's called The Story of the Cracked Pot. A water bearer in India had 2 large pots, each hung on a pole, which he carried across his neck. One of the pots had a crack in it, and while the other pot was perfect and always delivered a full portion of water, at the end of the long walk from the stream to the master's house, the cracked pot arrived only half full. For 2 full years, this went on daily, with the bearer delivering only 1.5 pots full of water in his master's house. Of course, the perfect pot was proud of its accomplishments. I didn't know pots could feel that way, but apparently perfect to the end for which it was made. But the poor cracked pot was ashamed of its own imperfection and miserable that it was able to accomplish only half of what it has been made to do. After 2 years of what it perceived to be a bitter failure, it spoke to the water bearer one day by the stream. "I am ashamed of myself, and I want to apologize to you." The bearer asked, "Why? What are you ashamed of?" The pot replied, "For these past 2 years, I am able to deliver only half of my load because this crack in my side causes the water to leak out all the way back to the master's house. Because of my flaws, you don't get full value for your efforts." The water bearer felt sorry for the old cracked pot, and in his compassion he said, "As we return to the master's house, I want you to notice the beautiful flowers along the path." As they went up the hill, the old cracked pot took notice of the sun warming the beautiful wildflowers on the side of the path, and this cheered it somewhat. But at the end of the trail, it still felt bad because it had leaked out half its load, and so again it apologized to the bearer for its failure. The bearer said to the pot, "Did you notice that there were flowers only on your side of the path, but not on the other pot's side? That's because I have always known about your flaw, and I took advantage of it. I planted flower seeds on your side of the path, and every day while we walk back from the stream, you've watered them. For 2 years, I have been able to pick these beautiful flowers to grace my master's table. Without you being just the way you are, he would not have this beauty to grace his house." In Japan, I think they have a practice called kintsugi, where they take a broken pot and they put it back together with gold. And it's a process of forgiveness and celebrating the flaws that we all have. Interesting. So I brought my 30 years of consulting experience and 20 years of ministry, and equipped with a lot of tools and ideas and training, and landed here in Seal Beach with a bunch of crackpots. And although I knew what CSL was looking for, home office, what they wanted, and had lots of ideas about what should happen, I surrendered and simply presenced what was present. I witnessed 3 brave women keeping it together and a small group of folks committed to each other with a willingness to do whatever it takes to keep it together. It was, for me, a major Momo. So we started to meet with, we didn't call it a care group when we started. We just sat down together and talked. And I said, let's start with prayer, and then let's start with recognizing something good in our lives. And that was easy to do. Everybody could do that. And then we also added that piece that Pam talked about is there any heaviness in your heart? Or is there something that's just bothering you mentally that is preventing us from meeting on a clean slate? And so that began the process of opening our hearts first to whatever was on the agenda. Because the context of how we meet is so much more important than anything on the agenda, than any of the content that we have to talk about. Until we can clear the air between us and open our hearts, we can't have an honest conversation about what is really happening. And so we shared all of this together. We met on Sundays, we had the workshops where we talked about what we were, the past of this community, what we were proud about, and the things that were more of a challenge, the things that we were sorry that happened, the anger, the grief, the disappointment, all of that stuff. And I think we got a lot of it out. We cleared the air quite a bit by getting that out. Kierkegaard said, life can only be understood backwards, but it has to be lived forward. Very interesting. We have to be able to look at the past and come to peace with it. So I think folks started to feel a little bit safer and more hopeful, which allowed us to begin to discuss some harder realities, like, is there any way that we could fund a minister full-time? And the answer came back, no, especially not after the pandemic. I mean, the community was smaller and, you know, the donations weren't there, and there was just, I think when I came, we were still questioning whether we could even have a service in person. Yeah, that was a long time ago. But because we had opened our hearts up, we were able to look at that and discover that there were more possibilities out there, and we could recognize that there was this power welling up within us to look at things differently. Brene Brown says this: vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. And that's what we discovered in the small groups. So once we set aside the option of candidating, we opened the possibility of collaboration, which was really exciting, and we did a lot there. At the same time, I visited our sister church, Namaste, and I watched this minister presence the vulnerability of another post-pandemic community. I marveled at the skill that she led this community with extraordinary respect and compassion. And I saw her loving kindness as she expressed toward another bunch of beautiful crackpots. Now, whether through experience or natural talent, I saw in Reverend Bobby an extraordinary woman whose skills in leveraging the power and possibilities of being vulnerable far surpassed my own skill. I knew I found a cooperative component in creating something extraordinary. She's the real deal, and I'm proud to call her a dear friend. Let's hear it. So I don't necessarily sleep well at night because I have a lot of ideas and a lot of excitement about this community and what we're moving toward. And I really appreciate Bobby's willingness to hear me out and trust her to keep me grounded in this process of letting this community find its own future rather than being driven by anything that either one of us says. And that's different. You can't begin to understand how different that is for a community to take charge on its own, to step into that brilliant future. And so I keep asking myself the religious science question and see how religious science has evolved over the years to a deeper place in consciousness. Because the limit of imagination is set by what we fear. And so our job is to root out the ways that we habitually deceive ourselves about what's possible. Because then imagination can spring open. So the most important way of evolving to the next level of consciousness is to go deeper, to begin to understand more about vulnerability and developing the core competencies, among other things, of being able to have difficult to have conversations and to be at ease with uncertainty. Because discomfort is the gateway to evolution. And we're at a point in the evolution of our centers that has to happen if CSL, if science of mind, if religious science is going to flourish again. What we're doing has been rarely done, probably never done in New Thought. But it is a natural outpicturing of all the prayers, all the treatment about creating a world that works for all. Doesn't that make sense? Even if we're uncomfortable with how it looks, we have to step into that place of trusting that prayer works. Isn't that what we're about? And so if this is the natural unfolding of the process that we're involved in for a year and a half, then it must be the right thing to do. I don't know how else to look at it. It's the natural consequence of the emerging soul needs of this community and all the communities out there. In practice, religious science has evolved now to where it's driven more from the heart rather than the head. We've looked at over the years different modalities of creative self-expression and the creative process in the individual with Wayne Dyer, Deepak Chopra, Eckhart Tolle, Abraham Hicks, Brene Brown. I mean, the list goes on of all the things that we're drawing from because we're trying to address this issue of not enoughness, of recognizing that everything that we need is present in this room right here and right now. We don't need to draw from anywhere else. Our good is not outside of ourselves, it's right here. So what's emerging is this new model moving from minister-centric to mission-centric. Okay, Reverend John, what the heck does that mean? Okay. The minister's job is to take responsibility for everything. The minister's job is to predict and control, and with the help of the board and volunteers, manage the never enough resources and try to create more programs, fundraisers, and special events to mitigate the not enoughness. That's the minister-centric model. How's it worked? So there's got to be a different way. And I think, when we talk about not enough, we're not just talking about money here. The next step in New Thought is healing this consciousness of not enoughness. Not enough resources, not enough health, not enough peace, prosperity, not enough love. As long as we're in that place, we're going to demonstrate more of what we're experiencing, right? Because the universe doesn't listen to words, it listens to what's in our heart and can only demonstrate what is in our heart. And so if we're constantly coming from that place of, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I don't have enough money, I'm not a good enough religious scientist, then we're always going to experience lack. And so there's a fundamental shift here of becoming mission-centric. The mission-centric model focuses on beingness of all the people in the community, the fulfillment of purpose in each individual and the entire community. Who you are and what your experience is critically important to me, but I'm only one person. Who you are and what you're experiencing is important to Reverend Bobby, but she's one person. And we cannot carry that burden of helping everyone in the community fulfill their purpose. So it's got to be generated from somewhere else. And where it's got to be generated in is from each person here. Each person in the community has to take a role in their willingness to be vulnerable and the willingness to embrace the vulnerability in another person. Because that vulnerability in the other person is a mirror of what's going on in our life and are critical pieces to fill in what's missing in our own hearts. That's why this is so important. Because when we do that, we become integrated, we become whole, and we're able to demonstrate more powerfully using the science of mind principles. So imagine a community that rather than donating for what it gets, this is called the receivership model, which is the old model, rather than donating for what it gets, a great music program, a nifty talk by a speaker, wonderful classes, all of that stuff that we pay for because that's what we're receiving. Instead of doing that, we're investing in a community as if it's the most important component in our retirement fund. It's a very different way of looking at things. Because we know what we invest in our retirement fund is going to carry us through for the rest of our life to live more richly, to live happier. And that's the difference of the community investing in purpose. Is that making sense? Imagine a community able to regenerate and sustain itself despite a pandemic, despite a recession, and despite the minister changing. The community can do that on its own because it's not dependent on what's outside of it. Imagine a community eagerly embracing spiritual evolution as its natural mission. We can't wait to grow and change and evolve. I know that can be really hard. I remember Oprah saying, one year I asked to be strong. And she said, I got more challenges that year than I ever did in my life, and I'll never ask for that again. But she also claimed she was fundamentally changed by it forever, and it made her stronger. You know, we have to have that willingness to do that. Imagine a community where the sacred is recognized and celebrated in each person, all living things, this planet, and seeing the sacred as the essence of the entire universe. That demands a change in consciousness. We don't just look at that thing outside of us, we see the sacred in it. So what is it going to take to do this? Well, it's going to take everyone stepping up to a level that they can, to embrace and envelop each other, to listen deeply to each other's experience, because it is in the sharing is the answer to every question and the solution to every problem, to quote Ernest Holmes. Each of us must go deeper in loving kindness than we thought possible, and courageously risk vulnerability and learn those competencies of having difficult to have conversations. It's very emotional, and it's hard for me to leave at this exciting point in our new venture, when the wildflower seeds are just being planted and watered by the exploration teams. And I can't wait to come back and see it in full bloom. But I do know what the future of religious science is, because I'm looking at it right now, and it's beautiful. So it is.
Oh my, that was amazing. I just want to take a moment to feel that. That was cool. Very cool. Broken pot. I love it. Well, then we're going to do a little tune by an amazing artist named Eddie Watkins Jr. And he says, "Get out of the way." You ready? Running round, fixing this and that, giving it up to God and taking it back. Just release and let it go. You don't have to think about it no more. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. Now you gotta repeat that, okay? Get out the way and let God do his thing. Yeah. Look like the weight of the world is on your back. Take a deep breath and cut yourself some slack. All that drama ain't good for you. You couldn't change what is if you wanted to. Get out of the way.
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 I said get out the way and let God do his thing. Let's blow that sax dance. Come on. Let's hear some more. Come on. Yeah, let's hear it for dance. The sun is gonna shine, the river's gonna flow, yeah. The tide's gonna rise without your say-so. The universe is working and the good is flowing. You don't plant a seed, then dig it up to see if it's growing. Get out of the way.
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 Get out the way and let God do his thing. Let's try that again, everybody. Well, get out of the way.
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 3 times. Get out the way and let God do his. Get out the way and let God do his. Get out the way and let God do his thing. Do his thing.
Do its thing.
Do his thing.
Do its thing.
Thank you, and thank you guys. Thank you for that. Wow. What a blast.
I told you it was going to be great. Wow. That was just absolutely amazing. Get out of the way, because here we come. We are on our way. All right. Now it's our time for our offering. And I usually say, I want to give back where I've been fed. I'm not going to say that today. I'm going to invite you to invest in our future, invest in where we're going. So I will And there's so many ways to give. We take it any way you want to give it. Text to tithe, PayPal, online, automatic giving. We even take cash and checks. You can put them in little wicker baskets. So we're just, and look at this great group. I love it. So now let's say our offering blessing. Okay, say it with me. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. I am prospered. Thank you, God. So now, okay, we're doing really well. Now we got a surprise. So I'm going to invite Pam up. We have a special video.
I'm always the one with surprises. I love surprises. Those of you that have been around for a while may remember that we always did an auction dance party for years to raise money. And one of my favorite parts of that, with Janice and I putting it on, was I did a video of the year in review. And I really missed doing that. So I now have a video of the last 18 months, and most of you may know Harold Payne. He's an amazing person that can just write music on the spot. And I thought of this great idea. Harold, would you maybe write a song for us, maybe? And he said, for you, anything. I don't think he meant me, I think he meant y'all. But, so anyway, here is my tribute to Reverend John and our journey the last 18 months.
It was right smack in the middle of COVID, when we were left without a minister, and a longtime secretary had passed away. So we had no paid staff to run the church. We had to do something without delay. With Sunday services on Zoom and in person, running the office and paying the bills, keeping the building up, and when something broke down, creating fundraisers to cure their ills. There were newsletters, the website, and Instagram, and coordinating other groups to use the facility. They set up practitioner workshops and classes and groups to the best of their ability. And people stepped up, like the Leadership Council, Marjorie, Jim, Janice, Floran, and Pam, teaming with Rachel, Wenda, John, and Carol Ann. They had to run everything and come up with a new format. They gave this ship a rudder and took us to where we're at. Today, we hired Reverend John as our interim minister. The smartest thing we could ever have done. It didn't take long for everyone to know that he was the one. Flying down from Seattle every month to give a sermon, do workshops, and all the minister stuff. Zoom calls with the steering committee, Marjorie, Janice, and Pam, and the practitioners led by Rachel with much love. And he stepped up with heartfelt connections in all interactions, with extraordinary respect and authentic conversation. Starting each meeting by sharing something good, in a safe place to listen and learn and to be understood. Then Reverend Jean and Reverend Bobby led exploration teams with Namaste and Seal Beach. And it looks like a possible joining together is within reach, because everyone stepped up stepped up. Everybody stepped up.
That really said it all. I was going to say a lot of things. I'm just going to say I lived this 18 months in awe. Not always comfortable, but in awe to see how we have evolved to where we've come. As it's been said, Reverend John came. We didn't have a choice. He was the only one available. But I really think that was Spirit's way of making sure we got the right guy. And yes, he guided us through the grieving period. He guided us into looking at collaboration.
That was your idea.
Oh, yeah? Oh, our idea. But he guided, yes, he guided anyway. And now he is continuing to move forward. Now we have the exploration group. We'll have the report after our little food over here. But and John is going to be staying with us for the next 6 months. We have a letter of call that's going to be signed on Thursday of this week. And he will support us remotely. He's also intending to take a class called Integral Ministries, which is about what we're doing here, about creating that beloved community that has the foundation to stand and move through whatever comes. So we gave our congregation an opportunity to make a donation. And we have a check. You want to come up? I'll just let everybody know, this check is for $1,325. And there's going to be a second check coming because some people are donating today, and we didn't have time to put it in there. So that is coming. And Janice is coming with our other remembrance. On the box it says, to Reverend John De Palma, with deep appreciation and extraordinary respect. Extraordinary respect is one of the words John has brought new meaning to me. It is the key of what we do. When we have extraordinary respect for one another, we can work through absolutely anything. And you make... In the box, it says, with love, Seal Beach Center for Spiritual Living. And we've given everybody an opportunity to write individual notes to John that he can take home with him tomorrow and read at his leisure. And John, we were gifted with you in ways I cannot imagine, in my respect and my love for everything that we've done together. And he's right, it's not all him, it's not all Bobby. We have 40 some odd people that are on the exploration teams that are meeting weekly and doing the research and doing the work. We are already in the process of becoming that beloved community. And I thank both Reverend Bobby and Reverend John for walking us through that.
Thank you. I can't begin to thank you enough. And I did start the class last Friday. And I can't tell you how excited I am about this, because it's taking this whole concept to a whole different level. And it was developed by Gary Simmons of Unity, and the things that Unity are doing are just remarkable, and I'm excited to be part of it. So thank you for this so much.
And I'm so grateful that we are contributing to his education, which we will benefit from. Now I'll let Rachel say a few words. I'm representing the board. She's representing the practitioners.
Hi, everybody. This is hard, but I'm going to try and get through it also. A little while ago, I asked our practitioners to let me know if they wanted to contribute some words to tell us, to tell Reverend John anything that they felt he gave to them that was invaluable. And so I got some really wonderful replies, and I'm not going to say them individually, but the composite of it. And they all expressed deep gratitude and appreciation for your steadfast and visionary leadership, for stability, safety, and confidence in the future, for a peacefulness around our center, for adding the word extraordinary to respect, providing an intention to speak from that awareness authentically, for the care model and its values, revitalizing our practitioner core, for course corrections when we might be straying from our vision, for being our anchor, mentor, and friend, helping us to realize our possibilities and to take the initial steps toward our greater yet to be, for your impeccable leadership and guidance, for always showing up with wisdom and insight that has benefited our center and our entire practitioner core, for your love and compassion that has set an inspiring example for the rest of us, for being deeply rooted in spiritual principles, providing the ongoing support of and collaboration with Reverend Bobby, and every one of your workshops and Sunday messages, giving an inspiring example of putting deep spiritual conviction behind every word and activity. And I'll end by saying from the deepest, oh my goodness, I don't know if I can continue, the deepest part of me, how grateful I am for your introducing us to this new idea of a beloved community, and for being that steady drumbeat, supporting underneath this shift in our church culture, as well as being a gentle listening space for the joyful and creative conversations you and I have shared. Thank you for going there with me and being a vital part of my own spiritual nourishment. I hope we can all continue to benefit from your intelligent and deep reflective observations to truly form a culture that supports extraordinary respect, compassion, safety, accountability, and equity for all who walk through our doors. And I know you'll continue to guide us through Zoom, but I will miss being in the same room. You will be missed. I love you.
We have one more little item, and that is Wenda has written a poem. And I think she's getting it right now. Oh.
Officially, good morning, everybody. Is this working? Oh, here we go. You may have noticed us in the sanctuary. I'm not sure. Maybe. We tried really hard to be quiet, but so we had a last-minute cancellation in the youth program, and quite honestly, I just really wanted to be here today for Reverend John's joyful noise. And so that's why we joined you here today. And let's see, I'm gonna set something down. Okay. Are you ready? I'm not ready. Okay. Whoa. It's okay, everybody. It's okay. Okay, the story began at CSL Seal Beach. We were left once again with no one to preach. The pandemic was raging, and it was 2021. We tried to be brave, but a minister, there was none. We really needed a strong helping hand. Reverend John showed up as if it had always been planned. He certainly was the answer to our prayers. With him on board, it lightened our cares. Compassion, extraordinary respect, and accountability were introduced. Contemplating, discussing, and engaging in these gave us a boost. Reverend John talked about safety and all its dimensions. He often led us straight into prayer to release our apprehensions, providing a sense of safety likened to that of a loving Father or God. His ability to share this gift with us, I cherish and applaud. The care group model was a strategy for us all along. This helped our community thrive and become strong. We followed the structure to love, learn, decide, and do, allowing creativity and innovation to organically flow through. I appreciated his teaching of the chrysalis. Transforming through connection has been bliss. He always reminded us our truth we must share, and then from there, we take it right into prayer. Reverend John's profound prayers open us up to perfection and love. His words often feel like they come from straight above. The bright twinkle in his eyes every time he speaks of Rev Kath makes me know he has found his right path. Reverend John is gentle, humble, supportive, and kind. He's also a good listener, wise, talented, and a great mind. He transformed our community with a greater vision, and it all fell into place with mystical precision. I'm filled with deep sadness as we say goodbye, but I know every great spirit at some point must fly. Fly free, have fun, and remember all you have done. We will never forget you, and we'll miss you a ton. It is with great appreciation that we bid you farewell. The story of our community's success will be yours to tell.
Benediction. Wow. And we have to invite Reverend Bobby up to do that. I mean, there's no other way to do it.
How do you follow all that? You do a benediction. That's how you do it, right? Just really quickly, thank you, my friend. I've come to be the benefactor of a deep friendship that I didn't see coming. And we don't always get to have these conversations with other ministers, but John and I seem to have been separated at birth. And so, my brother, thank you. Let's celebrate, shall we? Stand if you are able. Has today been just absolutely wonderful? Has it been amazing? And has it been so graciously grounded? Yes. So with that, I'm going to ask you a question. Now, for those of you that are new to this, let's pause between each line. Are you two ready? Do you know how this goes? You've been schooled?
Ready. Let's do it.
All right, here we go. What's happening right now?
Something wonderful is happening to me right now.
What is it?
It's this thing called life.
Is life only here?
No.
Is life only there?
No.
Is life up there?
No.
Well, where is it?
Life is in my mind.
Hold on. I know you want to get through it, don't you? So we know life is in my mind. Where else? And?
Life is in all that I do.
What am I going to do with it?
I give thanks for it.
And?
I accept it.
Is it just what I choose to give thanks for, what I choose to do, what I choose to accept? No. So what's the next line? What am I going to do with it?
Just the way that it is.
Hold on. So the point of the matter is, some things I don't choose, do I? It's true. Sometimes Chris chooses and I suffer. Sometimes Marjorie chooses and I'm thrilled. Sometimes things happen and show up. So life happens, doesn't it? So what's the next line?
Just the way that it is not.
Which I'm going to hold you to the rest of the day. So with that beautiful and deep and amazing gratitude for this life that we've had with Rev John, just hold that. As we allow that gratitude, I'm feeling a little goosebumpily, or God bumpily, if you'd like to call it. Just allow that gratitude to move up through our body. Allow it to fill us. For the spirit is not contained within the body. The spirit goes beyond the body. And it allows us to realize in this moment that we are so deeply connected as one, that John might not be here, and yet he is. We know this. So in that gratitude, allowing it to move up through our body, as it comes up to the top of our head and explodes, if you will just hold your hands out. And on the count of 3, say with me this last line. Are you ready?
Yes.
1, 2, 3.
Thank you, life.
I believe the pizza has arrived and will be served on the over there by the tables. You can eat. Yeah. Exit now for food. Music.
Gonna do the peace song?
Let's sing together.